Welcome! Today and in the next episode, we'll talk about happiness. I hope you're excited to join me. Now, happiness has been the cause of a lot of polarity in my life. I used to apologize for being too happy, and I was also apologetic for not being happy enough. Imagine what a trap, no way to be right in this world. And I'm sure some of you watching this can relate to this. Still keeping the happiest, most precious moments to ourselves because people judge. Few can relate to blissful states, and I've even had people turn on me either out of envy or just believing it is fake. And I spent most of my life believing that if I show my happiness, then other people will suffer, and it is something shameful to show my happiness to other people. And so I know firsthand how the fear of rejection for just being happy can be a very real thing. And on the other side of the spectrum, the deep feelers among us know that if we feel one side of the spectrum deeply, we feel the other one just as much. So I have been just as deeply unhappy as I have been happy, right? And there have definitely been times where joy, the emotion of joy, has seemed like this unimaginable fantasy that I will never experience again. And people have, by the way, also rejected me for being so deep in my shadow and exploring my shadow intentionally, that was too much for them to handle. And so that goes to show, first of all, that happiness can be a really charged topic. I would have hoped or dreamed by now that knowing that everyone just wants happiness, we would have found ways to just share it freely. Unfortunately, we have a lot of beliefs about happiness that aren't really helping that. So, for example, we may believe that happiness is not enough for everybody. We may believe that even if we can experience happiness, it is elusive, it is something we cannot control, it is something that will go away. And oftentimes it can even make us feel worse, as it did for me when I felt judged for my happiness, or we feel inadequate in our level of happiness, that we seem to be unable to be as happy as anyone else, and so we bring this pressure upon ourselves to try to show a happy side of ourselves, right? Now, the upside of my story, if it sounded a little bit sad, is that I have spent a lot of time on my own figuring out how to source happiness from inside myself. So that is not just a myth that we can be happy almost regardless of the external circumstances. Of course, it matters that our body is safe and that we can feel safe enough to pursue emotions, but it is possible to have an independent internal state. And that is where I live now. I feel this steady happiness that I'm sourcing inside. And yes, I still do fall down a little bit, but it's nowhere near where it used to be. And knowing myself, I can climb up again, and very quickly so. And that is something that I think we all need. So, what I've really learned is that joy, happiness is an art form, nothing more and nothing less. It can be learned, it can be mastered, even so if you've experienced tough times. So, in today's episode on the shadow side of happiness, I will go deeper into 5 reasons why it may be hard for us to feel and to maintain happiness. Because if we don't work with our shadow, then it will remain an elusive thing. But before we go into that, I just want to stress these key points, some of which I've already mentioned, and that for me seem to be kind of a foundation to keep that happiness and to find that happiness again if we have lost it or feel that we've lost it. And the first one I mentioned, stable happiness is possible. We need to believe that, and it is true. We can have happiness stay for longer if we learn to source it internally rather than from external sources. Number two, happiness is available for everyone, even if you've experienced trauma. Some of us definitely have more work to do, more healing in regards to our life situation, and our beliefs about happiness. And yes, we need to be very patient and compassionate with that. And don't let that be reason enough to give up, okay? It is possible for you too. And three, not being able to be happy is not a failure. Okay, this is important because if you were able to make yourself happy right now, you would have, right? It's okay to, again, be gentle and compassionate with where you are right now on your journey, where you're coming from. And that said, the fourth point is that if we do want to experience more joy in life, then we are the ones who need to make the changes to make that possible. And this may sound obvious to some of you, but the truth is still that to some degree we all kind of hope or desire for happiness to come to us through external sources. And so it's the life work to keep working on the ways in which we're expecting it to come from the outside. It's not our fault that we do this, it's conditioning, right? And that's a good thing, it's good news because conditioning can be changed, and that is something that I hope can be sparked a little bit more, maybe with the inspiration from this and the next episode. All right, so let's get into some of the deeper reasons why we seem to not be able to be happy or to stay happy. Number one is we may have learned that we cannot have our needs met. Our caregivers didn't actively create space for us to express what we wanted and help us experience that, have it fulfilled. Perhaps we were told off instead. And to an adult caregiver, there are occasions where this may seem like a very innocent happening. So, for example, imagine the kid at the toy store pointing at all the things that they want, and you're just laughing at them. And now, I don't want to say with this that you should give your kid everything they're pointing at. I'm saying how you react to such a situation matters. You could either react with their wants and needs by simply laughing all of them off and not giving them anything and not telling them how they might go about achieving what they desire. Or they might learn through your guidance that they can go after what they desire, and they can also learn the executive skill of prioritizing what is more important for me, what do I really want. And so that second approach is more of an affirming way with which they can manage their desires for the rest of their lives. And so it does matter. But more importantly than toys in the toy store, of course, is how we were guided to pursue activities that felt joyful to us as children. If caregivers did not encourage us to do the things that make us happy, or they didn't show us love for being happy, then we may have learned that our happiness was not important, or even worse, that it is even a bad thing somehow. We may have been the invisible child in the family, or we may even have been abused. And externally, oftentimes when this child grows up, this will show by them saying things like, I don't need much, or always letting other people choose the movies, the restaurant, the time and date, or possibly they're not even trying at all. They're not even trying to go for their needs, to socialize, to be active in the world at all. And if we probe deeper, we may find that this inner child, still as an adult, still feels helpless to have their needs met. They've given up this idea a long time ago that they can have their own needs met. And so they don't know, still as adults, that now it may actually be possible. And even if they knew that that was possible, they don't know how. So it is up to us to be parents for our inner child in this situation and guide them as to how I might actually take steps to have my needs met. And we must oftentimes learn the long way to feel that we deserve to have our needs met, that they are important, that we deserve to actually be completely and fully happy. And we teach ourselves this through actions, really, through the actions we take for our own inner happiness. Now, for some, happiness can even feel dangerous. It can be tied to loss or rejection or humiliation. And if that is the case, then we do have a very real need for people around us to actively engage and to actively show us that being happy with them is a safe thing. So to heal, in that case, we must work both internally and externally at the same time, having people actively support us with that. Reason number two why happiness, maintaining and being happy can feel hard, is that we have learned that love equals making others happy before we make ourselves happy. In the family, there may have been a lot of expectations between people to maintain each other's emotional states. And as a result, we've learned that we cannot be happy unless everyone around us is happy first. Take a moment to recognize the immense responsibility you're taking on yourself if this is you. Needing your entire environment to be happy. This is not possible. But if this is you, your inner child might still feel that it is and might still be trying. Empath abilities, this oversensitivity to what other people feel around us, is tied to having had to take too much responsibility one way or the other for other people's moods. What this really means is that we weren't safe to and encouraged to just be happy on our own, regardless of what the family were feeling, right? Independent of the family situation. So as adults, this hypervigilance will stay until we learn, until we reparent ourselves to know that it is safe to bring our attention back inside of us and to focus on what we need to be happy and not focus so much on the external and what they need to be happy. The third reason why happiness may feel difficult is that we have been trained to look outwards to have our needs met at all times. So we have never had the guided learning experience from our caregivers of how to create our own happy moments. We have learned that love equals other people making us happy, right? And the idea that we can actively create happiness for ourselves, inside ourselves, let alone how to do that, that was just not existent in the family. And instead, probably the family system was centered around this passive approach of happiness, that either other people or situations come in to make the family happy or we won't be happy at all. And there is often a fair amount of complaining in this family system with everything that goes wrong, right? And related to this, point number 4 is that we haven't learned to maintain our own happiness once it's there. So to source it internally, even in the face of fluctuating external conditions. So if someone does something nasty to you, will you still feel happy, right? Because most of us are so deeply trained to outsource our own feeling awareness into the external world. We are affected by whatever is happening around us. So if you initially felt happy and someone said something nasty, then now you're unhappy for the rest of the day. And the thing is, you accept it because in this society we have all been indoctrinated that happiness cannot be maintained, that it is a fluctuating thing. Now, this is true while you're living your life mostly unconsciously. It is also true to a fairly high degree while you are on a healing journey, because a healing journey is inherently unpredictable for your conscious mind, right? But it is not the end point. There is a possibility to build up this skill of maintaining your happiness, and that's what you need to believe in and work towards again. And how to do that is to learn to become an independent feeler. And to learn to become an independent feeler, what you do is learn to always bring your awareness back into you before you react. And so there are two components. First of all, not have your awareness all out there at all times, but bring it back into you. And then learn to actively choose what it is you want to feel instead. And if you manage to do this even once, I'm not saying it's easy, but if you have one experience where you can do these two things, you bring all your awareness back to you and you manage to create that different experience that you want to have within yourself, then that experience will be the turning point, because that's something you can draw on. So it's key, it's crucial to create that one learning experience for yourself so you know that this is possible. And number five, the reason why we find it hard to be happy is that we put that pressure on ourselves to be happy, not recognizing that pressure is what kills the joy in the first place, right? We live in this society that is full of pressure, and there's this expectation to show up with a happy face to your colleagues at work, or maybe even with friends. And that is very hard to break out of. We have to do it intentionally. And it takes unlearning through action to show your inner child that you actually now have that option to reject pressure culture. Okay, that you can choose what makes you happy. You can choose whatever brings you ease or freedom or playfulness, joy, adventure, relaxation, softness, whatever it is. That choice is yours, right? And that is your responsibility towards yourself. And it's, of course, this gradual process. Now, I've been talking about internal and external sources of happiness. And of course, I need to press also that external sources of happiness are important, especially when we feel that happiness is a really hard thing to feel, because they help us remember what it is like. They help us connect back to that consciousness again, which unfortunately as adults may feel very difficult to connect back to. And so in the next episode, I will share a more light-hearted approach to how you can connect more to those external sources of happiness to help you bring more of that inside of you. But even today, I do have a list of questions that might help you explore where your joy might be hiding and what might be standing in the way of your happiness. So let's go into those questions right away. Number one, when have you experienced happiness, joy, or playfulness in your life? Take a moment to write down everything that comes to you, especially those moments where you just felt this profound joy, this deep playfulness that was just so natural. Everything that comes to mind. Two, in what aspects have you experienced happiness? This is related to the first question, but it is more general. What kind of activities, what kind of thoughts were going on for you? So here are some examples. Maybe moving the body in some way helps you feel happy. Maybe nature connection in some particular way, and do note down which particular way. Maybe adventure or play, and again, what kind of play. Creativity, connection to certain people or to a community, sports, animals, whatever other things that you may think of. Take your time to write down all the aspects that have brought you joy in the past. And number three, how might you imagine that you could feel the feeling of happiness again? What is one likely avenue for you to feel happiness or joy again? And four, how would you describe the difference between your desired feelings and your current reality? And number five, in what ways are you enduring your life and your days? And then what would it take for you to tip the scale a little bit from enduring to enjoying a little bit more? What is your relationship in this moment to the feelings of happiness, of joy, of playfulness? What could complete emotional freedom look like to you? Can you imagine that? What are two small ways in which you can bring yourself a little bit more joy every day? What might hold you back from going after the experience of joy? What might hold you back from prioritizing the experience of joy? Knowing this, what might it take for you to experience a little bit more joy in your days? How might your relationships change if you would experience more joy? Who would you be if you were someone who experienced more joy? How would you walk? How would you move or dress or eat? Who could be an ally to help you experience more joy? Again, take a moment to write down all of your answers, maybe in a diary, and from the clarity that you gain, what might you be able to change in order to feel a little bit more happiness in everyday life? What could you do today? Ultimately, as I always say, happiness, joy, and playfulness are all states of consciousness, and we can access all states of consciousness through action. Okay, that action is multifold. So action applies on the level of where we place our thought, where we place our attention. It also relates to what emotions we're prioritizing daily. And of course, action also relates to what actual physical actions we take in everyday life in order for us to feel more happy and more at ease. And all these actions, all these types of actions are necessary for the whole. So the external sources of happiness obviously are important, and yet at the same time, when awareness slips to the external world and how to find our happiness out there, it is also good to remember that it is our life's journey, our life's work to bring that attention back inside again. The more that you can practice to draw your attention back inside of you, the better you will understand your habitual state of consciousness that you fall into, your awareness, your attention, your life experience, and how you're actually able to choose where to put your awareness, what state of consciousness to be in. And so the more you practice, the deeper understanding you will have, and the easier it will be for the mind to step outside and to choose freely what state of consciousness you want to be in. So as mentioned, in the next video I will share more light-hearted approach on how to access your happiness in the here and now, and there will be practical tips and inspiration for that. But if you really want to dive in, then I recommend you to join me on the monthly meditations that I hold, free meditations on Facebook Live. The next one is starting this Friday, June 30. And then there is also a free mini workshop on awakening joy and playfulness in your life, and that will happen on July 12th. And both of these are free, and if you want to join, all the details are found below, and I hope to see you there. I also hope that you've learned something, or if you have any other insights that you want to share with us, I'm sure we all can learn from them. So please comment below with anything that comes up for you. And thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you next time. Namaste.